Welcome to a Roundtable Drive. This is RMSO's version of a podcast or a radio show. We like to be out in Bigfoot sighting locations when we do most of ours. We do a handful of podcasts a year, but for the most part, these are our discussion shows. Email us at rmsobigfoot@gmail.com with any questions that you would like us to discuss on one of these. Now, there was a suggestion, and I apologize, I don't remember the name, but you suggested we put our game cameras on mountaintops, and then you also suggested masking the game cameras with like some type of a urine, and we actually do both. So I'm using this as an opportunity to, address your suggestion. We actually do both. We have 5 game cameras that sit right on top of a 9,500 foot mountaintop. I know 7 people personally that have had Bigfoot sightings on the top of Monte Cristo, and that is a mountaintop. Where we put those cameras, you just can't get any higher. And then as far as masking with urine, we've used elk urine on some cameras that we put back in Sasquatch Canyon, and that elk urine is used by hunters to bring in other elk, or they just spray it on themselves to, mask their own dill, but it actually attracts deer to that camera. I noticed when we started spraying the camera back at the 77 structure that every time I go back there and spray around the camera, we seem to immediately get deer coming up and around the camera sniffing around. So we do use both of your ideas, and I did do a response on there about it, and I think you took it the wrong way, so it's nice to just let you know here and now that we do both those, and I think they're great ideas. That's why we've been doing it. We also have used, not on the cameras, but we've used these chips that have been soaked in gorilla pee, and we got those from the old Dr. Bendernagel. He made up a bunch of those chips, and he called them gorilla pheromone chips, which, from what I understand, is pretty much, they get the pheromones from the urine. We used to use those chips, and
they just ran out.
Yeah, and I don't know, I haven't looked into trying to getting some. We were thinking about getting a hold of him at one point in time and seeing if we could buy some or whatever, but he passed away last year, and
yeah, you just can't buy those at the store. That elk spray is smelly.
well, I'll tell you what, the very first time I ever saw those gorilla pheromone chips used is when I was backpacking camping with Les Stroud and his crew. Jenny come up there with some of his crew and helped us set up a little backpacking camp back in there, and then they hiked out, and Les, his kid, and I stayed back there. But part of the setup that day is Jenny and I already had a couple of cameras back there, and then Les and his crew set up 4 more cameras, and they baited some of those cameras with that gorilla pheromone. Well, that first night, we sat by the fire, just telling stories, blah, blah, blah. And then Les played his harmonica for a little while, and I don't know what brought it in, but we got a vocalization really close to the camp, coming down from the canyon. You know, we hadn't been back beyond where we had set up that camp that night, and we heard it that direction. I don't know if it was the gorilla pheromone that brought it in, us making noise, harmonica, whatever, but something vocalized, and it sounded like an elk just getting ready to vocalize. Don't know if that's what it was. And then later that night, I heard something brush up against the tent, and really made me nervous. I was in my own tent, and then Les and his son were in a tent probably only 10 feet away, and I could hear both of them sleeping. I could hear their breathing, and then something on the opposite side of the tent from theirs brushed up against my tent. I was thinking about going out and taking a pee, and just thought, no, that's probably a bad idea, whatever brushed up against my tent. Anyway, the next morning, Les and his son asked if I heard the growling outside the tent the night before. I'm like, no, and Les said his son woke him up and heard it and everything, and I'm a really bad snorer, really bad, and so I just put that out there. I was like, well, it might have been me snoring. Oh no, that wasn't you. It growled on the opposite side of the tent from where yours was set up, and so I was like, let's go service the cameras. So there was a mountain lion hanging around at our camp between like midnight and 1 a.m. and we got 3 photos of him. I will put that mountain lion at the end of this video that I'm talking about. Got 3 photos of him, and all of them was on one of the cameras that we keep up there year round. It wasn't on any of Les's cameras, but the orientation of that mountain lion was facing and staring right at Les and his kid's tent.
There's a deer crossing the river right there.
Is there? Jenny and I saw an elk earlier down at the bottom of the mouth of these canyons. Jenny, I think, actually saw 3 bull elk. That was a really nice bull elk. It wasn't a good spot for us to try and get a photo of. But us seeing those elk, you never see those elk at the part of the canyon that we saw them down there. I've never seen elk there before, and so I'm thinking maybe the snow that we just had is pushing them down. So it might be a good opportunity to look for Squatch getting pushed down. On the right side of this road that we're on is the mountain I keep those 5 game cameras on. It's in that direction, not far from here. Yeah, we've taken the dirt roads off that mountain all the way to Bear Lake, and that's the direction we're headed now. This road takes us to Bear Lake, and this canyon is what I consider a Bigfoot sighting hot spot. And then the mountain to our right, so many sightings on top of that mountain.
And our left.
Yep. The first several years that we got really serious about this, on our left side, the canyon's on our left and the mountain's on our left, Jenny and I have spent many years where that was our spot that we'd come Bigfooting. Beaver Creek, Green Canyon. Tony's Grove. In the description of this video, I will put links to the Bigfoot sighting report videos that we have for this section. We don't have a video for every single report that's come out of here, but we have a handful of them. I like those reports. I like getting into the location and doing those reports so that, you know, we can show you guys the reason why we're coming back to these places. It's not because the place looks squatchy, it's because there's a history of multiple sightings.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of animals today. We've seen elk and deer. We've seen a bald eagle. Some hawks. There's a lot of animals out today.
Saw a pair of swan.
Oh yeah.
Big buggers flew out in front of us. Those elk, we usually see them up around the Hardware Ranch area and sometimes up on Monte Cristo, so it was weird seeing them down in the valley by the main road. Yeah, Jenny saw two of them in Sardine Canyon, and just as we were leaving the mouth of Sardine Canyon to come up to this one,
right in Wellsville.
just right off the side of the road, it was huge, huge old bull elk. It snowed a couple of days in a row up here.
Yeah, we had a really bad snowstorm last night. One of the worst ones I've seen this year. We're headed up to a canyon, or a couple years ago, after a snowstorm, we saw some footprints that looked like it may or may not have been a bipedal animal. And somebody last year saw some in the same canyon. So we're going to go up and drive through there and see if we can see fresh tracks.
Is that the canyon on the north side of Bear Lake?
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about? Okay.
Where we're going. We've also seen some really big tracks when we went up. We filmed them. They were along the ridge line of the mountain. Me and Derek went up the canyon just north of here, and we're going up there for a sighting report. And I looked out the window, and right at the top of the ridge of the mountain, you could see these big footprints. They just went right along the side of the mountaintop. So we filmed it, and we zoomed in. They're really good. We couldn't get to them because we would have had to cross the frozen river.
I think that was in St. Charles Canyon.
Yeah, St. Charles Canyon.
There's 4 Bigfoot sightings back there that we know of, maybe that they're actually on documented. Not, those aren't just the word of mouth. Those are the ones that actually got reported in writing. But all those canyons connect back in there, and Jenny and I camped in the Bloomington Canyon for a week. The week after a Bigfoot sighting down at the mouth of the canyon. So Jenny and I come up and stayed like 4 nights. And
the first night we were there was a really big scare. We were out putting our game cams out the first night before we went back to go to bed, and a big old brown bear comes right out of the tree line, like 20-30 feet in front of us, and walks up the trail away from us. And then when we head right back out, there's a big old moose coming right up behind us.
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, within 15 minutes of each other, we see a huge brown bear and a big old moose. It was very unnerving. There was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to hide or anything. It wasn't the most pleasant feeling in the world.
It's crazy as we see those 2 large animals. I mean, both of those are considered big game. And we see them about exactly a week after that lady had her Bigfoot sighting down in the mouth of the canyon. So you're like, did she see this big brown bear? Did she see this big moose? Or did she just actually see a Bigfoot? Now, what's the bear and the moose both doing in the area? Is there a food source that was going on at the time they're both there for? And so if that was a Bigfoot, was it there for the same reason the other 2 large game were? That was like the 1st or 2nd week of June, wasn't it?
We were actually at the snow line because
we got stuck in the snow the night before.
We got stuck in the snow the night before. So it's always best to see big game, and hopefully what we're really looking for is always it seems to be at the snow line. We gotta just camp right below the snow line every spring.
I've noticed sometimes right at the snow line, even though it's cold as hell, but it's where the snow line is, and then just before it is where it's just melted off. A lot of times you'll find tons and tons of mushrooms. I've seen that up on Monte Cristo where the mushrooms would just come in those conditions, and I've also saw it in Jarbidge. That first year we went up to Jarbidge, you remember when we were up at the snow line finding those, what looked like they could have been Bigfoot tracks, and then we were finding the mushrooms right next to the snow banks where they melted off.
That's true.
That was a smorgasbord of all different kinds of mushrooms.
And we found moose tracks and what appeared to be a wolf pack.
Yeah. Don't know if there's wolf in Jarbidge or come through Jarbidge, but those look like wolf tracks near the same embankment where we found the Bigfoot style looking tracks. Yeah, it was neat.
Looked like they were following the moose. And I don't think there's wild dog packs out there, so that was a little unnerving as well. Yeah,
in that same area we found an old miners camp too. And talking old, I mean, everything looked like it could have been close to 80, maybe 100 years old. That was neat. All the little artifacts and stuff that we found that were so old. Yeah, we left all those artifacts right where we found them in case anybody else finds that old miners camp. Can get the same experience we had checking it all out.
Must have been really bad up here. They haven't even got that outer lane cleared yet.
When my kids were too little that I didn't want to scare them of camping and fishing and all that, I didn't tell them Bigfoot stories, but I would take us camping in this canyon a lot so that I could get my little Bigfoot fix in and take the kids camping and fishing. And so then when they got older, adults and teenagers or whatever, I let them know, and they're like, no way. Those are Bigfoot spots. Yeah, I used to take them or several times I took them to Tony's Grove. There's this one campground that we stayed in down at the base of Tony's Grove where a tree was totally making us nervous, and so we weren't setting up anything in the way of it. And then we come up like a year later, and that tree had fallen over and smashed the picnic table that was there. Those trees up on Monte Cristo where we hear all the wood knocks and stuff, that grove of trees always made me nervous when we camped there.
Yeah, they were dead and cracked and ready to tip over.
Yeah, on the right side of us, on the mountain to the right. At the top, back that way, maybe 10 miles.
Oh, more.
It probably isn't even that far, really. But there was this place for a couple of years. Every time we would camp there, we would get wood knocks.
Every time.
And we don't do wood knocks and stuff. We don't try to propagate that stuff. We're not against it. It's just not our way. We want to just act like normal campers and hopefully get a Bigfoot interested or curious or whatever. We feel like if we try to do these communications, it probably will scare them away. So we don't do that. But this one place, and I'm talking, 7 people I know that have had Bigfoot sightings up there personally, plus there's other reports out there. And this one camp, every time Jenny and I would go there, wood knocks. And sometimes you would like stab a stake in.
A tent pick.
Yeah. Actually, it was the very first time we camped up there. The very first pin that I put in for the tent, the earth was kind of soft, so I shoved it almost all the way in. And then I got my little hammer and bam! And drove it the rest of the way. It was real good soil for it. And I stand up, and as soon as I stand up, we get a wood knock. Bam! And Jenny's like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. And then every once in a while, we would be incidentally doing something, like close the car door or chop a piece of wood, and then it would follow with the knock way out back in the woods. And every time we camped there, it went on for a couple of years. It was the weirdest thing. And we hiked back where we heard the knocks and several times. But there was one hairy time back there where something was back there mouth popping at us. We found where something looks like it wiped its butt on a pine bough back there. That was the same day we were getting the mouth popped. And we were just trying to be quiet and hike around and look around back there. And pretty close to the same location where something mouth popped really close to us, but we couldn't find it. When I talk about mouth pop, it's kind of like but I mean much louder than I could do. That was freaky. Something that close making those kind of noises, and we couldn't see it. And Jenny found the pine bough. I mean, it was like way high off the ground. I mean, but I guess you could grab it and pull it down a little bit further. But yeah, it looked like something big wiped its butt right on that pine bough. Anybody seen a moose wipe its butt? Because I can't think of too many butts to get that high without having a hand or something to pull it down. And
okay, yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, no, a lot of people into Bigfooting are like, why don't you collect its poop? You know, when you find a weird poop.
We found all sorts of weird
We collected crap and kept it in a box and a plastic bag in our garage for a couple of years. From what I understand, getting DNA out of poop, I mean, you gotta have the sample tested right away, and so much bacteria starts overtaking crap really fast, and I'm not collecting crap anymore. It's just
a waste of time.
Exactly. Unless it's petrified.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Hope you guys missed that. When you're looking at the science of Bigfoot, though, they do say that a lot of biologists say, 70% of what you know about an animal comes from its stool sample, because it shows its diet and all that. So if it's maybe a Bigfoot, not collecting that. I see a Bigfoot actually pooping, I'll go pick that up.
I swear, every conversation you have about Bigfoot always comes around to pee or poo.
It does not.
It does too.
Talking pee or poop.
Oh.
No, really. I just want to highlight a story, and I'll actually put this guy's sighting report in the description of this video. But this was a off-duty police officer, and he didn't report this until he retired. And you guys will have to go see the report, but from what I understand, he was ex-military, became a cop, retired from that, and then he finally told what happened to him. But he was off-duty, driving up there in his own personal vehicle, which was one of those little small-sized trucks. And he got stuck back in there in the snow, and he finally gave up getting himself out and just decided to stay the night in the cab of his truck and dig out in the morning, finish digging out in the morning. And he had gotten out of his truck a couple of times and peed not too far from his truck. Well, sometime in the middle of the night, after he had done that a couple of times, and he wasn't sleeping very well, by the way, sitting in his cab of his truck, he saw something sneaking up out of the trees onto the road where he was stuck. And he couldn't believe his eyes and everything, and he had a sidearm sitting beside him on the seat of the truck. But he was afraid to move, just left it there, and it snuck up a Bigfoot. He claims it was a Bigfoot.
Time out. Right here in this exact spot, a Bigfoot crossed the road.
This time of year, in front of a snowplow.
In front of the snowplow. Came right down the mountain, crossed the road, and ran over the other embankment. Okay, now you can finish your story.
And that was, Bobo did the reenactment on Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah, he did.
Of that one. Well, the Bigfoot sneaks up next to his truck, and the guy can't believe, and it's just taking, slow steps, stopping, observing, just slowly, and it come up next to his truck, and he sat and observed it the whole time, and then it bent over and smelled where he had been peeing, smelled it. And then he said it stood up and urinated on top of where he had been peeing, and then left. And after it went out of sight, he grabbed his sidearm and held it on his chest and stayed awake the rest of the night. That very same area, a couple of guys and their dogs got harassed by a Bigfoot. And that very same area we have been Bigfooting at for many years and have camped at it 1 year. But there's what I think is a territorial grove of aspens back there. There's a whole acre of them that have been bent over and snapped off, and most of the snap-offs are like 7, 8, 9 feet up there. And that happened at the snow line. You were just talking about the snow line earlier. That police officer thought he could get back in and check out that dirt road, and he hit the snow line and got stuck. Look at the size of this snowplow coming down. All right. So I'm pretty sure that's similar. He was in the commercial plow, and he says the Bigfoot that crossed the road was at his eye level.
Yeah, it looked in his window at him.
And it was a white Bigfoot. So makes you wonder if some, all, none change their color in the wintertime, or if that just happened to be a white one that's white year round.
Boy, that'd be really inconvenient. Just up the canyon to our left is the very first time I've ever heard what I thought was a Bigfoot vocalization.
Same here. 2 nights in a row back there.
Yeah, it was scary.
The canyon on our left. Back in that way, about 10-15 miles. Yeah, Jenny and I, that was our spot for a couple of years. We always kind of, every year, have a spot or two that we consistently go to, you know, maybe a half a dozen to a dozen times in this season.
Yeah, we were doing really well up there for a little while, and then it kind of dried up, so then we moved to another spot where we were getting some really good action, which is Sasquatch Canyon.
Yeah, it's weird. Sometimes, you know, you spend a long time finding a place with action, and sometimes when you find a place where you're hearing vocalizations or perhaps finding footprints, it sometimes goes on consistently for a season or two sometimes. And God, you take that for granted, and then that area dries up. You don't hear the vocalizations anymore, don't find footprints, don't hear the wood knocks, and it's like, okay, where'd they go? You know, the wood knock place, we took that place for granted for a
couple of years,
and then it just stopped. That place was scary those 2 years too.
Yeah.
We had some bear problems one night up there. The bears were vocalizing on either side of our camp to each other through our camp, just right when it gets dark. And
yeah, they've come right up to us, and it's not pleasant. Bears are scary.
Yep, and that's the same spot we were getting in those wood knocks that seemed to mimic us once in a while. This is kind of close to the top.
Yeah, almost to the top. All the snowmobilers are out.
I've camped back in this canyon to the left. Oh, no. I apologize. I've driven back there, Swan Flat Road. Was scouting a place to camp with my kids when they were little. Scouting Bigfoot spots. Across this valley, a hunter had a, to the right, at the ridge, at the trees over there, he had a Bigfoot sighting, and it was like roaring and vocalizing at him on top of the sighting. So that's what got me scouting into this area to camp, and I just didn't like the conditions back there. What turned me off is there isn't a water source back there. If there is, I didn't find it. It wasn't a creek, a river, or even a spring. And I'm talking Swan Flat Road. This is a popular snowmobiling and sledding place right here. I snowmobiled here once when I was in 7th grade. One of my friends' parents brought us here because they felt like it's the safest place for a little kid to buzz around on the snowmobile. And then after they let us buzz around for an hour or two, then we went. They both drove and we rode on the back, and they took us clear back in the trees and some cool places.
I've sledded here, but never brought my snowmobile up here. Yeah, you can take a snowmobile off to the right here and right through that canyon over there and make it to Monte Cristo.
Yeah, exactly. We've taken it. Yeah, somewhere in this tree line near this ridge area, don't know the exact spot, that's where a hunter had his terrifying encounter. There is some pretty cool camp spots right up here on the top too. We've come and checked them out. Because of that guy's sighting, we've debated staying up here. But as you can see, look how deep the snow is. There's like, you can't even camp up here until like July. Yeah, the snow's pretty much this deep up here every year too.
And this is the summit.
Yep. Sunrise Campgrounds. Just so y'all know, you want to go Bigfooting, camp right here. Bigfoot sighting right here. Not at the campground, but you know what I mean. Pretty damn close. It's nice when you can get a campground with facilities close to a Bigfoot sighting, because there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings that me and Jenny have to, like, you know, just rough it. There's no facilities. If you don't bring it, you don't have it.
Yeah, we hardly ever stay in campgrounds.
Our last driving round table I did a little while back, I was asking people to have their Bigfoot sightings at better places to camp. You know, when you get back to some of these Bigfoot sightings, a lot of them, and you're like, holy crap, I'm in the flipping middle of nowhere. What the hell, you know? And
Well, yeah.
So it's pretty rough going, but once in a while, you know, you get a sighting not too far from the main road, and you got facilities around that. Yeah, Jenny and I over the years have had to buy camping gear for every type of situation. You know, we got a little trailer for places we can take that, and we rarely take that trailer out because, you know, we can't get
it in.
We can't get it to the most of the places that we need. I mean, there's places that is off the beaten path where the Forest Service may set up a vault bathroom or whatever, and then it's so nice when you can find one of those way back in there. But a lot of times there's no facilities, and then we can't get our trailer in, so you know, we have different type tents. We got our backpacking tents, and then the ones for campgrounds. What I'm talking about campground is even if it's a makeshift where you can get your vehicle in there and throw the tent next to your vehicle.
Yeah, we don't stay in like paid campgrounds.
Not very often, but if we can, that's wonderful.
I don't even remember the last time we even stayed in one of those.
And a paid campground?
In California, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, just a lot of times there isn't those type of facilities where we need to go. Jarbidge, we stayed in a really nice campground that they didn't even make you pay for. They Forest Service or whoever it is set you up with a vaulted bathroom there and a concrete picnic table and a fire ring.
Whoa.
And that was wonderful, and we didn't even have to pay for it. I think it's because we were there during the off season.
There's a new cabin up there.
Right up on that ridgeline. A few years ago, Jenny and I we were camping here, bigfooting, and we had to come out to one of the towns to Bear Lake for something that we needed, and making the drive from camp out here, big old bull moose that we filmed not too far from here. We've also seen moose come out and wade in the water in the lake here. Thanks. You didn't have to do that. There's beautiful Bear Lake off to your right. The Bear Lake Monster's pretty famous here. A lot of big lakes have their monster sightings. Bear Lake's one of them. And it's famous for that, but this area is personally should be more famous for Bigfoot. There's 9 Bigfoot sightings that are all within 5 miles of this lake. This lake's 20 miles long by, like, what is it, 7 miles wide at the widest?
There's also been UFO sightings.
Yeah, there has been those.
I have 2 family members that actually swear that they saw rainbow-colored lights that spun in circles, come right up out of the water and shoot right up into the sky. And I didn't see it. I don't think I was even born yet, but they both say that they saw it.
You know, I've worked with some people that saw UFOs right over near the causeway at Great Salt Lake. They said a lot of people drove down there that saw the UFOs hovering and flying around. And it just attracted a lot of attention of people in the area that drove right down to the causeway and sat there in a group witnessing something that none of them can explain. It's amazing how many group sightings of UFOs I remember down in the Phoenix area, where all over town all these people were filming UFOs above the town or the city of Phoenix. So, you know, you bring that up and this area is known for its raspberries. They have raspberry days here. And all summer long, you guys come out here, you'll be able to get the best raspberry shakes at almost any one of these places. People line up, clear out to the road.
Wow, the weather's getting bad.
I think the wind's just blowing the snow back onto the road. I heard a couple of comments on about the Provo Bigfoot investigation that I did, even though I consider it an inconclusive event, that Bigfoot that was filmed up there, just because I found a set of human footprints up there. I found what looked like Bigfoot shaped footprints, and you know, who knows, maybe the guy up there had something to do with those, maybe he didn't. But I heard a few comments that the ones I found were snowshoes. And if you look at the one, especially the best preserved one, the one that was 17 inches or larger in the oak brush and the trees, it was protected from the wind, and the deer hadn't walked through that one, but it still had a dusting of snow down on the inside. So I felt like it was pretty well preserved. And I ruled out snowshoes because you can see toes along there. You can see the tops of the toes, how they munched into the snow. And I'll put a photo of that right here. The reason why I'm ruling out snowshoes is snowshoes have a claw. At least the ones I own and the ones I check out have like a claw system right in the middle that just punches down into the snow. It's to keep you from sliding backwards. Helps you with stability. So if you're finding snowshoes, that's what you're gonna find. And then plus, there's all different types of mechanical markings and stuff. Now I'll put up the photo of, this is one of the better footprints I found up there. A lot of them out in the sun, where I found the most of them. Those were sun damaged, wind damaged, and several deer had come walking right through over the top of them. But the one in the trees was really nice preserved. And it definitely wasn't a snowshoe. Very steep section. I found the well-preserved one. A lot of people, most people, take off their snowshoes when it's that steep. I hear conversations where people talk about if Bigfoot hibernates or not. There's always that debate. But in this part of Utah, I say no, because just in this canyon alone, there's a winter Bigfoot sighting by a plow driver, and there's several Bigfoot sightings here in the winter down in Provo. I think it was the winter of 2013, exactly the same time of year as right now. Jenny and I were back in Sasquatch Canyon, and we found really nice Bigfoot tracks back there in the snow. Very well defined toes and everything. It had warmed up that day, and the snow was getting really soft. So we were lucky to find them when we did, because I bet you they would have melted away in a day or two. But that was back in February of 2013, right in the middle of the month, middle of winter, and we're finding Bigfoot activity back there. Beautiful country. Hope you guys enjoy these roundtable drives through these Bigfoot sighting hotspots. It's fun to get to see the entire area.
I can't wait till it's all melted.
I know.
Every time around this year, I can't wait to get back out into the woods and it just starts dumping snow.
We've had some mild years where we were out doing 7-mile hikes. That 2013, when we found those tracks back there, that was like a 7-mile round trip.
Yeah, there's been some. Well, that's a different area. This place.
This is much higher and much wetter.
This is a different type of terrain. Can't do it out here.
Beaver Mountain. Wish we could Bigfoot full time. There's all these different places we love to go, places we've had action, and we get out a lot, just as much or more than most people I know when it comes to this, and we just never get to all of our spots every year.
No, it's impossible. Use up all of our
vacation weekends.
Our vacation time from work doing it, and then every weekend that is possible, weather permitting. And sometimes not weather permitting. We've been stuck in the snow.
We got stuck in the snow twice in 5 years.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
One of them was really bad.
One of them, we were pulling a trailer. Got stuck. Then we ran into a fishing game guy the next day, and he was telling us how he got get stuck and was explaining the spot. And I was like, hey, we were just stuck there last night.
Yeah.
So we're not the only ones that thought we could get through that spot.
Backcountry skiers waiting for a ride.
Yeah, they must have skied back side of Beaver Mountain. Yep, Jenny and I's done a lot of Bigfoot around the Beaver Mountain area. A lot of camping. It's where we heard vocalizations. You know, you hear the vocalizations on the television shows and all that, you know, may or may not be Bigfoot. And, you know, my whole life I'd never heard anything like those, but what Jenny and I heard 2 nights in a row down where Beaver Creek and Hell's Canyon kind of meet up a little bit.
Huh? Beaver Creek and Hell's Canyon do not meet up.
Oh, not Hell's Canyon, I'm sorry, Green Canyon. Green Canyon, Paris Canyon, there's kind of a merge of a bunch of the canyons back there. And that's the place that we 2 nights in a row heard the long, powerful scream.
I've never heard anything like that on a tape, on the television, on anything. Nothing has ever sounded like that, ever. A big, huge, just screeching scream, loud, just, it was there was nothing like it. 10 times louder than you would ever think something could even make that noise.
Yeah, and its vocalization lasted like, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds or so, maybe longer. And it's just the lungs, I've been able to keep that up for so long, just felt like outside of a human's lung capacity. But the strange thing is 2 nights in a row and only once did I hear it. You know, and the first night when I heard it, just like, is that gonna keep happening tonight? Another vocalization that really got me is a little bit much further north of here, near the Montpelier area. I was in the mountains there, Jenny and I camping because of the Bigfoot sightings back there. There have been a couple of hunters back there that has seen a group of 3 Bigfoots. And it's happened on more than one occasion, at least 3 sightings of the 3 Bigfoot together back there. But it was probably the 2nd or 3rd time Jenny and I ever camped back there, and we were the only ones back there. It was a crappy weather.
It was raining really hard.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff, and we were the only ones back there and didn't see anybody drive in or out. And one night, just as the sun was going down, I heard these vocalizations, and it sounded like there was 2 or 3 of them, different voices making these vocalizations. And the best way I can describe it is it was like watching an episode of Finding Bigfoot. At the end, how they usually go out and make their vocalizations in the dark, trying to get a Bigfoot to respond.
Their bobo calls?
Yeah, it just, the sound of it just, you know. And so what went through my head is, you know, you're always in denial when you're finding something that looks like it's Bigfoot related. You're immediately in denial and you want to explain it away as something else. And I guess you should be that way, but anyway, I was thinking there's got to be someone else camping back here. You know, they're Bigfoot enthusiasts and they just made these calls. And I was expecting a crazy night. Well, Jenny and I jumped in the Jeep and we drove up the canyon in the direction that we heard those, or I heard them. I don't recall
I
if
didn't
she
hear
did.
them at all.
Yeah, she was inside the trailer. with a bunch of stuff going on in there. So I'm the only one that heard them. But anyway, we jumped in the Jeep and we drove up on the mountain in the direction looking for the campers that I expected to find, and we didn't find any. They're just like we thought. There was nobody there, and that's when it set in. I was like, oh my God, those weren't people. So I was expecting a crazy, crazy night, because that just happened as the sun was about ready to go down. It was a nice, calm night.
Yeah, nothing happened.
See, the first night we were there, we got there and we set up in the rain. And it rained all night long, and most of the next day we actually went out and serviced game camera and stuff in the rain. And then we spent most of the time in the trailer because it was just non-stop rain. And then a few hours before we heard those vocalizations, it quit raining, it cleared up, sun about ready to go down, and it sounded like someone had Finding Bigfoot show on, turned all the way up. Those are probably some of the best vocalization that I have heard since we heard those ones back on the west side of Bear Lake. We heard those ones, I believe, back in 2011 or 2012.
12.
Those were some of the years that we were always camping back there. I think it was 2011 because
I don't think we had our trailer then.
Oh no, I was talking about the one that we heard back on the west side of Bear Lake.
Oh, yeah.
That's because I remember that same expedition was the first time I caught like a deer on a game camera, and I was so excited. It was a little doe. And that's when we were first really starting to use game cameras, is back in 2011. So I was just, yay, I finally got something. And that was the same year we heard the vocalizations and all that. Something else weird that happened during that vocalization time is we found a footprint right in the middle of the creek, not too far from where we were camping. You know, it looked like a large child's footprint, like around 8 inches long or whatever, or a small person. And it just was so weird, is because the entire creek bed before and after it was the type of material, if something walked up to that footprint and walked beyond, it would leave tracks, and there was no tracks leading up to it or beyond it. And this was like right in the middle. It like this part of the creek was like 15 feet wide, so it's like something from one embankment cleared half the creek, perfect one step in the mud and the water, and then leaped to the other side. And like, I can't imagine a person to even been able to do that the way it went down. And this track doesn't have the instep of a person that you would expect. It has more of the oval Bigfoot shape. Bigfoot really doesn't leave an instep. It sometimes will leave the mid-tarsal break. Yeah, we talked about a few different types of footprints. I'll leave those at the end of this video, photos of them. The ones that we talked about in the snow, and then the one in the mud. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the little cruise around a Bigfoot sighting hotspot location. Keep on watching, we'll keep on squatching.